Coming up on this week's show, some huge news for TurboGrafx fans.
A new Amiga magazine is coming.
And we talk gaming memories with Go 8-Bit's Dara Briain.
Hello and welcome to the Retro Hour podcast, episode number 247, your weekly dose of retro gaming and technology news with me, Dan Wood.
Me, Ravi Abbott.
And me, Joe Fox.
And welcome to our weekly geek out of the best retro gaming stories and technology from the last 7 days. We have a little roundtable discussion about what's been going on, and then the second half of the show, we dedicate it to bringing on a very special guest. Now, I actually wasn't involved in this week's interview, although I must admit, I am slightly gutted that I wasn't, because it sounds like you guys had an absolute blast recording this, Joe.
Yeah, we had about an hour chat with the legend Dara Briain, which was just hilarious, to be perfectly honest. We it was very chilled. We just kind of spoke a lot about gaming memories, shared a lot of memories, a lot of his memories from the 70s and 80s and 90s. And then we moved on to talking about some fantastic shows like Go 8-Bit and Robot Wars. But I really hope you've edited this really well, because I think about half an hour of it is just me laughing. Because the guy
half an hour of it is swearing as well.
Just swearing, just like I could not stop laughing. He was just the funniest guest we've ever had on, and it was just really cool because like I grew up watching him on like Mock of the Week and stuff like that as well, and he was just really down to earth. And he actually mentioned that he'd been invited to do a couple of BBC podcasts, but we actually got in there first, and it was really nice of him to say, "I'm actually going to do you guys first, and then I'll do those ones in a couple of months." So he's not kind of like doubling up and stuff, and I thought that was really good. So it was a great interview.
And of course, our long-running feud with the BBC, being that we are in competition with Gardener's World podcast every week in the charts.
Main rivals, Gardener's World. God.
Well, Ravi keeps listening to them.
that Monty Don. No, so I was talking to Charlie Brooker when we had him on the show, and he mentioned that there was a lot of people that are into games, and Dara was one. And then obviously seeing him on Go 8-Bit, and I'm a huge Robot Wars fan as well. I really geek out in that. So I messaged him, and he was totally up for coming on the show, and it's fantastic. I hope we get more of these kind of celebrities that are secret gamers,
Well, Dara, I mean, for those outside the UK, I mean, I'm sure everyone in the UK and Ireland will know who Dara is. But I mean, for people in Australia and America, he's actually, I mean, he's a very big name here in Britain. He's like being a stand-up comedian. He does shows all over the world, though, actually. And also, like he said, he's hosts panel shows like Mock the Week. He did The Apprentice, You're Fired, The Panel. He's had, British Academy Television Awards for Best Entertainment. He did Go 8-Bit.
Gaming BAFTAs as well. And also in his comedy sets, he does a lot about video games. So Gears of War, he's done it. And if you look up his Gears of War video on YouTube, it's absolutely hilarious. He sums up Gears of War 3 so well.
And Go 8-Bit, I mean, we've actually done episodes in the past about that. We did one with Steve, didn't we?
Yeah.
From Go 8-Bit a couple of years ago. And that was kind of a British comedy panel show that was centered around retro video games that was on from about 2016 for a couple of seasons. And that was a great show. And Dara, again, like you said, he's kind of one of these celebrities who are closet video games fans. I mean, Dara a bit more obvious than someone like Jonathan Ross, for example, who also is a massive video games fan. But it's just great when you kind of break them out of their, the television shell and get them just like really nerding out. So I'm actually really excited to hear this interview. It sounds like you guys had such a laugh doing it.
Oh, it's great fun. And, he was going, oh, is this just going to be me talking about Gradius or like a game for an hour? He was totally just prepared to sit there and geek out. So it's a really fun interview. I hope you guys enjoy it.
So Dara Briain's going to be our special guest. He'll be on the show in around 15 minutes from now. Now, let's just get straight into the stories this week, because there's been lots of news stories been shared all over my timeline this week. I keep seeing this one popping up everywhere. The brand new release from Analog, who are doing a TurboGrafx console.
Yeah, this one, I thought they'd already done this, but obviously they haven't. This looks really interesting. So they've announced today at the point of recording that they're going to be releasing next year the TurboGrafx Analog Duo, which just looks really, really cool. It's going to be coming out at $199.99. So I'm not too sure if we're going to get it in the UK, but it's going to have TurboGrafx 16, the PC Engine, the SuperGrafx, TurboGrafx CD, and the PC Engine CD-ROM, and the Super Arcade CD-ROM all in one package, which I didn't even know there was that many TurboGrafx consoles, to be honest, and that many different, like cartridges and games for it and stuff like that. So it's really cool. But what's really awesome is it's not emulation or anything like that. It's going to be playing original discs, original cards and stuff like that, and you can use your original controllers on it and everything like that. So I think that's really interesting.
So it's accurately recreating the hardware on FPGA, which actually this company Analog have a really good reputation for. So they've released previous consoles and they've been really compatible with the older machines, playing all of the games. And, like the Analog Pocket, that was a hugely successful machine as well. I think they sold out straight away with that.
Wow.
So, this one, they've got a really good reputation going into it. And interestingly, it's the first CD-based system. So do you think this could lead to later CD machines being done? Do you think we could get some like Saturn Dreamcast hybrid?
I was about to say what I would love to see is some of the more obscure, like the CDI and stuff like that. But I think that's more reasonable, like a Saturn Dreamcast hybrid one. That didn't even cross my mind. So yeah, I think I'm quite excited for it. I probably won't pick one up at that price point, but just because I'm not too familiar with the TurboGrafx. But it could be a reason to get familiar with it. But that would be incredible, a Sega Saturn Dreamcast duo thing, like, a couple of years down the line.
It's for the real kind of hardcore fans, this is, because you get your great 1080p video output. You can have your gamepad, you can play your original consoles, but it does come with the price tag to reflect that. So it's $199 at the moment.
Interesting that you say it comes with a price tag, but sometimes some of these machines are like $500. I forget the name of the one that we covered a couple of months ago, but the one that plays, it's like, I completely forgot. Dan might know it when I say it, but it's like the one that you can clip all the different things to it, and you can make it so
poly.
The poly.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh wow, that could be finally like a reason for me to play some Neo Geo CD. Thinking it would be a lot cheaper, but no, I was like, well, I may as well just buy a Neo Geo CD, get it for like $500 and buy in one of them. So I don't know how much TurboGrafx and stuff go for. I know the Mini is usually about £100, but I don't think that's too bad at the $200 price mark. But at the same time, it's coming out, kind of when PS5 and Xbox, whatever it's called, are going to be, on the horizon as well. So I don't know how well it will sell.
Yeah, I think obviously it's a different market. I think, someone who buys a PlayStation 5 is probably not going to be interested in a TurboGrafx machine. But I mean, it's interesting you mentioned the CDI, because I was looking at the design of it, I was thinking, what does that remind me of? And actually, it does remind me. It does. The smaller model, the 400 or something, I think it was called.
Yeah, it looks like it looks like a cross between the CDI and one of the later PS3s to me. That's what it looks like. But it does look slick, doesn't it? For what it is, like they've kind of gone to town on this, and
they do a nice job of presenting it, but they are saying here as well there are going to be many delays because there was with the Pocket, and they're going to have to do it in limited quantities because of the pandemic situation at the moment, which seems to be affecting a lot of these consoles and people creating machines.
The amount of systems it can cover as well, I think, is really good, because essentially, I mean, I think I speak for both of you guys as well, I'm not too familiar with the PC Engine TurboGrafx 16 library. I mean, I've seen them at, Play Expo and stuff like that and had a little go on them, but it was never really a system that was massive over here. I mean, the older kids at school had like Mega Drives and Super Nintendos and Amigas and stuff. I didn't know anyone that had a PC Engine back in the day.
No, nor did I. It wasn't one I'd heard of until not even a teenager, like well into my adulthood. I heard about it.
Yeah, until we went to Retro Revival. I think that was the first time that I actually saw a PC Engine. I was like, what is this expensive device?
Well, I mean, the fact that you can actually play pretty much all of the library on here as well, the Super Graphics, and I think that was kind of like an add-on, wasn't it, to kind of a bit like a 32X kind of thing for the TurboGrafx 16?
I'm not too sure. I think it was, but I've seen pictures of all the different, because it's called different things in different countries as well.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of there is like a lot of add-ons for it, very 32X-esque looking, when I see them and stuff like that. So I think you're right.
And having a CD reader and having a card slot on there as well. It just looks like, if you do want to explore that library and not use emulation, have like a really faithful piece of hardware that's going to let you play all of the NEC library, I guess, then it looks like a perfect solution. I must admit, $199, it's not quite an impulse buy, but I think, if you've got a real interest in playing those games. And so what I love about getting a system like when I got a Neo Geo CD last year, because it was a system that I'd read a lot about back in the day when I was a kid, but I didn't know anyone that had one, it was kind of like getting a completely brand new system to explore the library. And especially one that's, it was a powerful machine.
Yeah.
So the games are actually quite in depth, and I think, it's quite exciting actually just delving into a new platform that you're not too familiar with and having like a whole new library of games, or even different versions of games that you were familiar with, which, back then, often you get various releases of games on different platforms, and they're often completely different. It's not like now where you'll get a game on Xbox One and PS4 and, you have to kind of squint to see the difference between them. Back then, often you get like real different versions of your favourite games. So I think for, just for that, I think it does interest me.
Yeah, but then at the same time, the only games I can think of for it is Bonk. That's literally it. Like, I can't think of anything else right now. So,
which was BC Kid, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah,
on
I
Mega
think
Drive.
you're right. Yeah, I think you had Bomberman on it as well. So,
yeah, well, Bomberman's in this picture on here. So,
is it?
I think
there we go.
the more of these devices we get that let you kind of play these games without relying on expensive aging hardware, I think is fantastic. And Analog, they've got a great reputation for doing it right. So, if you want to read more about that, I'll link up the article in our show notes at theretrohour.com. Maybe a little bit more old school though. Maybe sitting down and having a game of Pong is a bit more your style.
Yeah, so this is the Atari Mini Junior, and it's a little Pong device. And actually, it's really interesting because, Pong was one of the first kind of big successful arcade machines. And this is a tiny device. It looks about the size of a mobile phone. And you can sit down and play with somebody opposite to you. And interestingly, this is a new collaboration from Atari. So they're working with a new manufacturer, which is called Unis. And they want to partner with them. So this is being created by a new group, Unis Technology, and then it will be distributed with Chinese and Asian markets by them. And Arcade 1UP will be handling it in North America.
Oh, nice.
Arcade 1UP already have distribution channels with the arcade machines that they have themselves. So this kind of fits in well with that like little arcade legacy. And it looks like a nice little device as well. They've got AI in there, and I'm sure the AI is a lot smarter than the original Pong AI. It's got difficulty levels, a nice little LCD screen. It's compact, and it's all run on rechargeable batteries as well, which is pretty awesome.
What I love about it is, where it's like the key features of the Atari Mini Pong. It's lightweight, it's compact, it's perfect for the home, office, and on the go. Imagine being on the train or a plane and like you pull out your Switch and you look over and somebody pulls out one of these and starts playing Pong.
I'll battle you.
You're right, I would.
Yeah, that could work. Yeah,
it's just funny to think that it's like and on the go, but yeah, it is. It's only 7.9 inches, so a little
that's
bit.
That's like an iPad mini size, then, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's pretty cool, and it's got the actual like paddles as well, like the actual dials,
little wheels.
Yeah, which are really cool. Yeah.
That's one thing. So, I mean, I played the original Pong cabinet, the one they've got up in Leeds at Arcade Club up there. And that was just, me and my friend were there. We obviously played all, we were playing on Golden Axe and Street Fighter and all that kind of thing. But then when I spied that original Pong cabinet, I said to my mate Paul, I was like, should we ever go on that? We were on it for about half an hour. It's one of those where it's, just one more go. And, obviously I did a full interview with Al Alcorn that we ran on the podcast a bit earlier this year.
Yeah.
The man behind Pong. And when I was talking to him, I said to him, in terms of video games that are multiplayer, to this day, that game is one of the most adrenaline-fueled multiplayer experiences that I've ever played. Just when you see the opponent's ball flying towards your paddle, and you're going to miss it, that feeling of dread. It's like, it still does it for me, Pong. I think it's still great fun.
Yeah, I really want to try one of these out, and maybe we can get one and do a little Pong battle. That would be good fun when this COVID's over, because I doubt that's 2 meters or distance.
They got a really slick launch video as well. I don't know if you've seen it. Loads of neon and everything as well. So
I love that. Loads of neon and stuff for Pong, black and white.
That proper 80s look to it as well. So there's no release date or pricing for it yet. I mean, it doesn't look like it's going to be a very expensive machine, but they're saying that it should be available in time for Christmas. So, we'll make a nice little Christmas stocking filler this year, I think that. Now, Ravi's been keeping busy recently. You're involved in this little project that you've been telling me and Joe about all this week. A brand new Amiga magazine, a printed magazine on paper that attempts to hark back to the days of stuff like Amiga Format and CU Amiga, is going to be coming out soon, and you're involved in this.
Yeah, so out of disclosure, I'm the deputy editor for it. And actually, Jonah Naylor, who runs Simulant Systems as well, he's the editor, graphics designer, and staff writer. So he's kind of come up with this project. And for like a couple of months, he was saying, Ravi, I've got this idea. I've got this great idea. And I was like, oh, what is it? And then he finally dropped it on us all. And it seems fantastic. It's like I've been missing something with magazines, which has been the kind of cheekiness and stuff like the letters section and, you know, that general magazine culture. We're always on about it on this show.
Yeah.
And we're trying to basically recreate that. Now, to justify the printing of the magazine, we're going to need 500 pre-orders. So we kind of know how big the market is, how many we need to print. We don't want to print too many. And if we don't hit that number, everyone will get refunded as well. So it's not like you're kind of just committing to chuck your money away. But what you receive is 54 pages, full A4 magazine with community written pieces as well. So for the first issues, we're going to get people from the Amiga community because it's really blowing up and getting passionate at the moment. We want to get them involved, edit their pieces, put them in, and then have professional interviews alongside them, staff written articles. We're going to cover new and classic gaming, software and hardware, demo scene, all of these kind of cool things that you've kind of been missing out on, getting a nice little physical magazine and getting it actually posted through your door. So I hope that we hit this number, and to help us out, you could go to amiga-addict.com.
I love the logo as well, because it looks very similar to the Amiga Format font.
Yeah, and it's all done on Amiga. The whole magazine is produced on PageStream, which is an Amiga piece of software, which is even crazier.
Because you sent me some of the page mock-ups over, and it looks incredible considering it's done on 25, 30-year-old machines. So I remember even back in the day, there is a video where they're going around Future Publishing, and they're going to Amiga Format's offices, and they're actually showing the machines that they worked on then. And all of those mags back then were made on Macs in Quark Express.
They're all hiding in shame, covering up the Mac. No, we do it on an Amiga, honestly.
I love magazines anyway. I read Retro Gamer every month, but that's about the only mag that I really get these days. So having another one that you can just, take in the bath with you and read and stuff is just great, I think.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get this number. And, if you go on the website, you'll be able to read some articles already that we've created. So you get a kind of idea of what the magazine's going to be like.
And I think Joe will have to get a subscription ready for his Amiga Mini.
I was literally thinking they should interview me, and I should just be like, I don't know anything about Amiga.
well, like you said, it's kind of going to be your gateway drug. So if you're becoming an Amiga addict, then you need a gateway drug, don't you?
This could be it. I was just reading it as well. I was like, I should probably back this.
So yeah, definitely make it happen, everyone. If you want a good physical Amiga magazines. I do miss those. The last one I bought, I think, was I got a few Amiga Future issues when, I see them at shows and stuff.
They've been running for 8 years. They're German based and they've been going, but they're every 2 months as well. So, there's there'll be half the amount of those coming out, but they're still great.
And they cover a lot of the more modern stuff, don't they? Not the classic Amiga stuff, which, I'm more into the old school stuff these days, if I'm honest. I think the last one I bought regularly was Amiga Active. That must have been, 20 years ago?
2001 that was, but then they have Total Amiga. Do you remember that one? That was Southeast Amiga Group or Amiga Link, yeah.
But there hasn't been many in the last 20 years here in the UK. So, I think, if you're a fan of those mags back in the day, definitely support this, amiga-addict.com. Now, while everyone's getting hyped for the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox One Series X that everyone keeps going on about at the moment, we're a bit more excited for these classic games. Like, for example, maybe you want to run The Last of Us 2 on your original PlayStation.
So, this is a great article, which is... It's called Demaking in the Year of the Next Generation, and it's on Eurogamer. Now, they're talking about, we love demakes on this show. absolutely.
Explain what a demake is for the people that might not know.
Demake is taking a modern title, a cool new game, and then kind of putting it onto a lesser system, or it could be an older one. So like the greatest one that I loved was Halo 2600, which was Halo taken down to the Atari 2600s, like down to the bare minimum. But this article, they talk about ones that I've not seen before. And I don't know if you've heard of this. This one's definitely for Joe. Soundless Mountain 2.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of this. This is really cool when you sent me this. I was watching it thinking it was brand new, going, oh my God, I want to play this. I hope this comes out on an NES cart. But yeah, essentially, Soundless Mountain 2 is a demake of Silent Hill 2. And it just looks amazing. Like they've captured the essence of it so well. But it turned out it was actually made in 2008. And it's just kind of resurfaced again, in this article. But a lot of it, what I found was really interesting, is a lot of people, making The Last of Us Part 2 as a demake for like PS1. There's another one, like, Resident Evil 2, the remake, but then demade into, which makes no sense because obviously it was a remake. But it
remake and demaking it.
Yeah, like it was just really interesting. But what I didn't know about it, and it's actually something that we've touched on before in the show, then I was like, oh yeah, it's all coming back to me. They're being built in, from what I understand from what Ravi was explaining to me, in PS4 software in something called Dreams.
Yeah. So Dreams is this kind of software, and it's designed to work, be a toolkit that works within the PS4 environment, but they're wanting to make it so you can release your own Dreams titles, like as legitimate titles themselves.
Yeah.
Now, this guy, obviously, he's been remaking them, but he's been doing small levels. His name's Barely Regal on YouTube. And he's been kind of making them, but, he probably can't get away with this because a lot of the rights, he's made here Cyberpunk 1997.
That's amazing.
Which is based on the kind of Cyberpunk demo. So I don't think he'll be able to release these fully, but it's really interesting to see that you could kind of make these games inside the PlayStation architecture. It reminds me of Net Euros.
Yeah, that's the blue PlayStation 1, isn't it? Where you could make your own games and they came out.
Yeah, black one. Yeah, and
the black one,
kind of program them. Yeah,
and it came out on the demo discs, didn't it? The full games would come out on them and stuff. And I think it's a crying shame that they can't release them. Like you say, it's all because of legalities and stuff like that. But when I see these, I'm like, I'd love to buy an NES cartridge and play that. I'd love to buy a PS1 version of The Last of Us 2. So,
and it looks really good as well. Like the soundtrack,
it looks so good.
Yeah. I was like, I really want to play that. Yeah, it's like the sneaking around in Last of Us works really well.
Yeah, definitely. And we all love retro here. I mean, with the retro out at the end of the day. So, but I'm sure there's places to find these on the internet so we can play them on our PCs and stuff. But I'd just love to have that physical media and just play it, just slap it in my PS1 or whatever. That would just be absolutely amazing.
And I love the lengths that these guys go to as well.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I'll link up the Eurogamer article all about demakes in the show notes. I mean, they're talking about a guy called Nicholas in here who's actually, he did the Scum engine. He's actually remade it in Pico 8.
That's
that kind of. And he's done like games like Monkey Island in there, and he's done Maniac Mansion. But he talks about the fact that to do that, he actually tracked down LucasArts' old internal tutorial files.
Oh, wow.
And he actually tried to make it, even the programming interface, as closely recreated to the original as possible. So there's a lot of attention to detail goes into these.
I love these like passion projects, where people are just coding for the sake of coding or for like pushing something to its limits. It's really nice.
Now, before we chat to this week's special guest, Dara, Briain, who will be on in just a moment, let's talk about this, a game-breaking glitch that's been found by someone quite unlikely in Pokemon Sapphire.
Yeah, so I don't know if you know about this phenomenon. So a lot of people kind of, they do different things when streaming. So I think it was Let's Play Pokemon was one where they had an audience that would decide on the controls. Now, this guy's actually got a fish. He's got a fish. He's created a grid. And then wherever the fish goes, his pet fish on the grid, it will then start to play Pokemon Sapphire.
So essentially the fish swims around in front of the A and B buttons and the up, down, left, right. And whatever it kind of swim past, it then does on the stream, on the game, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's amazing. It's been doing
So the fish is playing the game.
So the fish is playing the game, and it's been playing it since October 3rd, apparently, being streamed. But when Ravi sent me over this, like, not only is that fascinating and amazing, but it's actually found a game-breaking glitch in Pokemon Sapphire, which has never been discovered before. And
so maybe it's the randomness of the fish that's
so
actually
random,
caught this.
Essentially, it's like when you stand on this particular spot in a mount. I'm not familiar with the game. I love the original Pokemon game.
Was it a Game Boy game, wasn't it?
It was a Game Boy Advance game. Yeah,
Yeah.
Game Boy Advance game. It came out in 2002. So by that point, I'd stopped playing Pokemon. But essentially, you get moves that you can use in the overworld, like Strength and Fly. Strength being one where you push and break boulders out of the way. And essentially, when you're in this particular dungeon, rather than moving this block out of the way, it actually spawns another block and makes 2 blocks and breaks the game, essentially. Like, and this fish accidentally discovered it by just swimming over those button presses in that exact space. So the chances of that happening are just like millions and millions and millions to one. But this fish is called Morris, and he found it. Maurice, and he's found it.
It's amazing because we've seen AI playing games, and now we're seeing fish play games. Like, I wonder what's going to be next.
You know, if my
AI
job,
fish.
if my job was a video games tester, I'd be very nervous now. I just think I have all these visions of like Nintendo just telling all their game testers, "All right, go home, bringing in all these fish tanks."
We've got a load of koi carp. You guys have got to go home.
We've got to save money. COVID's shutting us down. Get the fish in.
They never stop as well. I've never seen a fish asleep. Have you?
No.
I have when I bought them from the fair.
Yeah, normally the next day. Right then, before our interview with the incredible Dara Briain is coming up in just a moment, just time to give a massive thank you to our patron supporters. Now, we do have a patron that's running, and we've mentioned before the reason that we're doing a patron. I mean, essentially, we have a lot of pot of money that, you know, you guys very generously donate to, and that just means that it pays for stuff like equipment for us to do the show from home. It pays for the software that we use not only to record and edit, all the subscriptions as well, our website hosting. Essentially means that we don't have to pay to do the show, which, you know, I've got to admit, it's quite a nice thing that you guys help us out and enable us to do the show every single week for you and dedicate time to getting these incredible guests on as well. And of course, you have a few perks for backing us on Patreon as well. We recorded and released our first proper episode of our second podcast that we're going to be doing probably around twice a month. No strict schedule on it. We're going to try and get a couple of these out a month, called the Retro Hour After Hours. And the first episode, people have been receiving this really well, actually. We've had some great comments on it. You came up with an idea to interview each other, and it was actually quite a laugh, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really fun, and like I think it was just really laid back and chill, and I think there was a lot more swearing and stuff than there usually was in it. And we just did it all in one take, you know. I mean, we're getting a lot better now. We've only, I think we've got one edit in this one, but usually
don't give away the magic.
Yeah, I know. Usually we have loads of edits and stuff. It was just really cool sitting back and, you know, putting Ravi on the spot as well, asking him questions. Which I thought was
it's
really fun.
you guys' turn next time.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, it was really fun, and I'm glad people have been enjoying it and, you know, saying some nice things about it as well.
And you can kind of find out a bit about kind of behind the scenes. I mean, I talked through, you know, we talked about the home studios. I went through in detail all the equipment that we bought and the reasons why we chose each piece. And also we do our kind of retro gaming pickups. You know, we chat about what we've been doing in terms of gaming over the last weeks. Essentially, this second show, we're going to experiment with the format. We talked about we might do a phone-in on there one week.
Yeah.
We're probably going to do about our favourite consoles in a couple of weeks' time as well. So really, it's an excuse for us just to kind of, you know, break free from any format. Just turn the mics on for an hour and have a bit of fun with it, really. So you can check it out if you're a patron. It's exclusive to our patrons. And also, we're going to be doing another Patrons Hangout this coming Sunday evening as well at 8 p.m. So you'll find the link for that in our patrons if you want to hang out with me, Joe, and Ravi. Just, you know, kick back and chew the fat about video games, whatever. You know, we chat about all sorts of stuff on those once a month. You'll also get an ad-free episode. Sometimes you get the show a bit early as well. So there's a lot of perks for backing us, but really you're ensuring that this podcast continues into the future. And of course, for doing that, you will get a mention in the very prestigious Retro Hour Hall of Fame. Like this week, thank you to Daniel James,
Graham Sinclair,
Robin Glennie,
Chris Snowden,
and the Retro Channel.
who all made donations into the running of the show, and you can do the same back us on Patreon at theretrohour.com. Right, we'll have more news for you on next Friday's show, and next we get the inside story on Go 8-Bit, talking gaming memories with the legend that is Dara Briain, next on the Retro Hour.
You're listening to the Retro Hour, and I'm here with Dara O'Brien. How are you doing, Dara?
I'm very, very well. Lovely to be on the show.
Thanks. And we've got a question that we always ask our guests first, and that was, what was your first kind of gaming experience or first gaming memory you actually have?
The first, I'm trying to, the dates get a little bit foggy, but I think the first thing, I remember meeting my dad walking as he tried to secretly carry an Atari 2600 home from Argos on a holiday to England when we were about 10 or something. And he was like, "Oh, you weren't supposed to see this." And so he was trying to palm the surprisingly hugely boxed Atari 2600 that 2652, the one with the oak paneling. And he purchased that, like, whatever. I think before then it was like there were very rudimentary stuff. Because you guys sound younger. Yeah, you would occasionally go on a school trip to the library that had a computer. And you would see the computer, and you could maybe take a turn to touch the computer. And it was like, like a school pet or something. You get to maybe just pat the computer on one of the keys. And so I think I played games on an Apple II. That's probably about as rudimentary as I've gone back, or some early PC type, some early 8068 motherboard, whatever the type things. There was a friend of mine, his dad was a computer scientist, and he had a drawer filled with cassettes that had names of amazing sounding games on them, which were dreadful when we loaded them up. And there's on some computer where they're just so obscure and so built for a specific purpose. And this is not the purpose. This is real people writing space war type stuff. Yeah. So early. We had a Binatone briefly as well.
One of the Pong kind of
the Pong
machines.
Binatone, yeah. And that disappeared. It got bundled in with something that a TV we were renting or something. So it was after the Atari, but it was still. I played Pong on a Binatone. Just to really establish where I am in the absolute, caveman kind of element of this, like the Jurassic era that I was in.
Well, my first machine was my brother's 2600. Actually, what kind of games were you playing on there? And
a lot of combat.
Your imagination?
A lot of combat, which was the one that could bundle free with it, which you were either an airplane or a tank, and the motion was very similar for both. But I do remember some uncle pontificating, it's very good for teaching them about angles, because there was some mode on combat where you drove your sluggish tank around, and then you could bounce cannon shells off walls to hit other tanks. And that was, it was quite compelling, but it was, if it lacked in realism slightly. So we played a lot of that. There was a night drive game on the Atari, which was just, you'd see two pillars on either side of the road coming towards you, or a series of pillars. So it would snake along, and you'd start to stay within the pillars with your, I think all you do is you move the pillars, and the thing you were driving stayed the same. There are lots of workarounds in that, and occasionally you go, you crashed. You go, oh, okay.
I remember the sound effect.
Yes. So it was rudimentary, but combat was a big one, actually. I'm not going back. It must have been something else, but we never bought like Space Invaders.
Oh, really?
Or Pac-Man. It was because they were like £1,000 for a game. It was a bit like, people forget, for example, how expensive movies were to buy back in the mid 80s, where it was £45 to buy a new VHS of something. So nobody, to buy E.T. was £60, like whatever. So nobody bought these things. You rented. But it was things were just ludicrously expensive by comparison to today.
And the ports for the Atari of those like commercial titles were really bad as well.
Because I'd done a little bit of Space Invaders in the arcades. I wasn't, I didn't have that much disposable money at that age. I was around about 8. So I've had a go, I think. For some reason, I always associate with Space Invaders with ferries between the Dublin port and Holyhead in Wales, because they're those machines were sitting around. But it was, and the womp, 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 womp thing, I associate with that, and killing 4 hours on a rough sea. But it was so, I mean, that's quite it's a different atmosphere to recreate in your house. But no, I never played Space Marine. I thought Space Marine was supposed to be quite good. What I always loved, by the way, independent of all these, was the promise of 152 different games, which were just modes that were slightly marginally different. Basically, do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember.
It'd be like the doubles on the Biotone machine, or you'd have just different combinations of exactly the same
Atari
game.
used to do it all the time, where you'd buy any Atari game and it would have a number in the corner, and the number in the corner was the number of different games within that cartridge, and they were just like, you're at the top of the screen and now the aliens are at the bottom of the screen. It was just tiny flips of the same engine done in loads of different ways, like whatever. And I mean, because Combat had 27 different games, it really hit it 2, but it just put the walls in different locations and stuff. Yeah. Oh, they're great for fitting in what felt like different. You'd physically click through the different. For some head, it's all wood. It's all, the joysticks were wood, the television was wood, screen was wood. That it was all just very steampunk in my memory of it being very kind of clank into the next mode, and then the thing would rotate around. So we never shelled out for Pac-Man or anything. No.
Was there much of an Irish gaming scene where you grew up then?
There were kids in my class who would play games. That'd be the extent of the scene. We'd no other way of finding other people around. Ireland was sufficiently small that it was very tough to get independent magazines and stuff off the ground. I think so. Most of the stuff we got shipped in. I sent a tweet to Julian Rignall the other day, who wrote for Zap64, because he retweets the covers of them, and I subscribed to it when I had a Commodore 64, and so Zap would come through the door. But so it was that kind of thing. We read the English magazines. No, there wasn't, as far as I know, anything particularly uniquely Irish. I may have missed, like I was, again, young. So there may be a huge scene of coders making bedroom games, but I don't think anything ever got through.
Well, we got asked by a listener, because you were raised in Bray, did you go to Dawson's Amusements?
I certainly did. That is a top quality question. Dawson's or the Star Amusements? And Star Amusements were kind of the ones that came. Dawson's was the grande dame of the amusements. Further was one in the middle. There's 3 of them at one stage, and Star was a new brash young buck of amusement arcades. Bray is a seaside town, faded glory all through my youth. It's settled into its kind of status now. As a kind of a suburban town that happens to have a prom that people can walk along. So it's regarded as a positive. Whereas when I was there, it was like it was coming off the point where it was where people genuinely went for holidays. And then during the 70s, it really wasn't, and it was all it's a bit the Smiths. Every day is like Sunday. That kind of just endless out of seasonness of it all. But it had arcades. It had a number of arcades. So Ye Are Kung Fu was my game of choice in the arcade, and I would often try to get down to the arcade early, establish a fairly pitiful high score on Ye Are Kung Fu, and then lord it for like 20 minutes until somebody else arrived who could actually get past the third fighter in Ye Are Kung Fu.
I hear Boulder Dash was one of your favourite titles as well.
Boulder would be, because I went, the journey was then Atari 2600, VIC-20. Mm-hmm. Has anyone come on with a list of the amazing classic games of the VIC-20?
Oh yeah, we've actually had some of the VIC-20 developers on. Yeah.
3.5K. I mean, miracles. There was a chariot race was finally the outstanding one. Don't know that ever got mentioned. Which was a chariot race where you had to bump your guy into a wall, bump the other things into a wall. That was quite good. But it was, if you can imagine the step from that into the Commodore 64, wow, it was ludicrous. Oh my God, this with so many worlds, so many screens. That was the other great benchmark of games in the 80s. How many screens did it have?
It's crazy because they've just actually released a recreation of the VIC-20, like a VIC-20 Mini console. It's just come out.
Have they?
Yeah, insane. So VIC-20 is still available in the stores.
Oh my God! I'm sorry. I'm literally writing that down. I is that like I'll find it on any major internet.
It was the guys that did the C64 Mini,
which I only had out the other day because I was showing it to my 9-year-old. who was going, wow, what were the games like? And I go, let me take you on a journey. Take you on an incredible journey into...
Put Fortnite down. Let me show you this.
Yeah. Yeah, if all the servers fail, then don't worry, Paradroid will still be here that we can do. But wow, I'm sorry, I've written a box on there, but I'm definitely getting that because it's even on emulators, it isn't the most popular emulation by any stretch of the imagination.
We were quite surprised when they released it because we were like, is there going to be that much of a demand for the VIC-20? But there seems to be a good fan base for it.
Oh, I mean, even the 64 games look a little bit rudimentary now. I cannot imagine. I'd imagine you plug it in once is what happens. And then you go, oh, okay. I mean, some of the games were dreadful on it. Just really, but that was, that all got forgotten when the minute the Commodore 64 arrived. And then we're into genuine quality. Just learning stuff. Yeah, Boulder Dash. You were going to do Boulder Dash?
Yeah.
Boulder Dash is, I think, is a Stone Cold classic. I have about 7 different emulated versions of it, dotted around iPads and stuff, because I'm trying to track down the mouthfeel, as they say. I want to track down the exact kind of sense of playing it. Which is proven to be surprisingly difficult. Actually, I either have a good emulation machine that has a good joystick, and I can't get the C64 emulator to run very well on it, or I have, with the best will in the world, I quite love that. I love that little C64 emulator, but the joystick isn't great on it. And I have a strong ache for, and this is another word I haven't said in 30 years, micro switches.
Oh yes,
yeah, and the little click you'd get. There was one company who used to make the Rolls Royce of joysticks, and God, but if you can remember the name of
Competition Pro, or Competition Pro, maybe.
Okay, hang on. Now, they didn't do the Quickfire, did they?
I think they were the rivals to the Quickfire.
Yeah, Quickfire is massively overrated to the respect of the people who did it. Quickfire had a molded hand, like about 7 different fire buttons, and had a rapid fire button that you could click on, which is regarded as it was like the Predator football boot is regarded as slightly cheating to have this. But Quickfire was actually a bit wobbly and jerky. It might be the what do you say, Competition Pro? Yeah, and they had a series of one which was, I can only describe it to you. It was molded like a shell. Let's say it had one button in the middle of a kind of it was like a teardrop shape.
Yeah.
With the fire button at the top and the joystick below it. So your hand was molded and your thumb naturally fell onto the fire button. And then obviously the other hand was holding the joystick. And that was a lovely design. But then they had another one which was like a beautiful square, 2 buttons, and then and it was black, but the joystick itself was red. And when you moved it, it had a satisfying click, 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 click as the little switches registered what you were doing. That was a Christmas present in 1985, and it was much adored. The anticipation alone of it, but it was a beautiful thing. I'm sure there's a USB version of it somewhere. I'm now writing down Competition Pro. This is really great. This is essentially just
shopping list.
Competition Pro. I've got to sort it out. But those things were I think a beauty. I mean, I don't think modern controllers have anything on that.
Since like the Wii, the Wiimote was kind of really innovative, but everything else has just been a gamepad. There's not really been any kind of crazy thing.
I enjoy, a giant 40-hour adventure as much as the next man if I ever get the chance to play them. But I enjoy polygons and, being able to know that everyone I shoot in Call of Duty has a slightly different eye color. I enjoy that as much as anyone. But there is something, I remember when the Wii was so intuitive. I remember my wife, I think it was pre-kids, the Wii, it was, she's going, this is great fun. Is there anything on those other machines? And you go, no, they're not the ones, they're the ones, if you reach further around, there's another set of buttons underneath there. And then you can touch the middle bit and you can touch the side bits. And then you can actually, the bit you put in your thumb, you can actually press that in as well. So it's like, this is, if you come from nowhere, there's like, this is nonsense.
And some of the flight simulator stuff, like I know that's just coming back because Microsoft Flight Simulator, they were insane, weren't they?
We don't need to actually be a plane, presumably. I always thought I was trained. People wanted to go daka 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 and do spins and yeah. Anyway, look, just do that thing where you flip your hand up into goggles over your eyes, and shoot things. A very simplistic view of how these things should work. There was a game on the Commodore 64 called Mercenary, which people don't remember. Do you remember that?
I don't know that one.
No. Yeah.
The one where you land on a planet. It was done in wireframe.
Yeah,
and you fly, and there's a whole planet of you flying around, and there's an area that you land. Your ship lands, and you have to get off the planet basically. So you can in various locations on the planet there are underground tunnels and areas in which you find items. And there's some danger. I can't remember what the danger is, but basically you're just meandering in an entire world, and it was just insane how big this world was, because there was even bits where you'd fly off around the planet, and for no reason they'd built like a suspension bridge. Just in wireframe, just sitting some point of the planet, and you could fly around and under and around and over, and it was like, this is incredible. There's an entire world here, and that was the thing I always loved about games. I still do, is just the creation of entire worlds.
Did you ever play Elite at all?
No, because it's in the BBC, so I never. I mean, did it flip over to Commodore 64 then at some stage? It may have been when it was already.
There must have been some kind of conversions, but that was crazy.
I never got the Elite thing, and we read about it because you'd read C and VG, in terms of ranking retro magazines, C and VG was 2 or 3. Zap was clearly the best, and then there's one called Commodore User. Do you remember Commodore User?
Oh yeah.
Well, Commodore User was notable in our school because one of the boys in the class visited England, bought a porn magazine, brought it back, and it got passed around the class. What folded into the pages of an edition of Commodore User, and word about this got out, and the song started, "We all want to see your Commodore User." So we walked in the school all day with other children. The teacher would, what's up with this? But we all want to see your Commodore User. The rhythm of it was perfect, but there.
Fantastic.
So that, if you can imagine, all of your 14-year-old obsessions came together in one beautiful moment. Sorry. Anyway, Balderdash, beautiful balance of gameplay and discovery, but you have to, again, you need a good joystick because it's quite precise. There's a bit where you go down and have to quickly go left or right, otherwise a rock will fall on you, and that remains unbelievably irritating because it still does that on the retro thing. But I mean, lovely. And then for some reason they did a Boulder construction set at one stage, where you could literally just fill the entire arena with diamonds, and then it was like a bonus level. You go, oh, ding 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 ding, and run along and just collect all the diamonds.
Fantastic.
But it was tough. It was tough finishing. It was very, very tough as a thing. The other one I absolutely adored was Impossible Mission.
Yeah,
and that I did actually start up again last week, and it remains great. It remains fabulous. Just I think the second one they ruined it by going isometric, but the first one was just, there's something pure about how the man and the Foley editing is weird on it, because he's running through these corridors, but it makes the sound of gravel as he runs, and he goes as he runs through these clearly polished linoleum marble corridors that he's running through, but it goes but it's so smooth, the animation is so perfect, and then to the point that I can still, go, another visitor, stay a while, stay forever, was the really difficult to understand speech on the Commodore 64 that I had on it. But that remained a great game.
Fantastic. So when 16-bit came around, how did gaming change for yourself?
It disappeared. It totally disappeared out of my life because 16-bit coincided with me going to university. So all of the first consoles, it was SNES and all that stuff, like the never played any of them because I was living the dream of being in university, and I just disappeared into a bubble for 5-6 years, and so all that during all the episodes we do about it on Thingamajig, Go 8-bit. Yeah. I'd sort of smile in a kind of oh yeah, God, yeah, whoa, that was they were great, weren't they? And never played it. So consoles I missed, I think, were those Nintendos, early Nintendos, the Game Gear, the Sega ones, all of those. Sorry, I was in my
Just missed them
bubble.
all. Nah, that's fair enough.
Other things I missed for those 5 years. Take That. Totally missed Take That.
You didn't miss much, in my opinion.
Well, it pains different because later I realised that We Light My Fire is a banger, but it was things like that just went past you. You were just in the thing, so I missed that completely. And what happened then was I got out of university and ended up being a children's television presenter in Ireland because it was the gig you can get when you're 23 or 22. And I said, hey, we should have some video games on this, like whatever. And I got Sony Ireland to send me a PlayStation. And brilliant. Then I brought this into a shared house and I said, look at this thing. And the PlayStation 1 appeared. And that's where it all began again.
I was going to say our next question was what actually got you back into gaming?
It was the excuse of having a thing. It was just a kind of, hey, why don't we do an item about gaming? It was up to unbelievably... really, people interested in the world's largest entertainment industry? I don't know. And it couldn't be as improvably pointed out that this is it's the biggest thing in people's lives then as it could now, but we still did that, and so we came in just in time for Tomb Raider, for FIFA 98, for Tekken 2, and that was the stuff that, and also it helped then that I was living in a house share, and so there's always people around who wanted to play. So that was.
You must have been like amazed kind of coming from that period and then checking out the latest titles where they're full interactive pieces with soundtracks.
I'm reflecting. Going from to, in college there's the odd kind of, there was the odd arcade machine dotted around, like whatever. Pac-Land was another complete obsession of mine. That as well for a long time. Pac-Land. Sorry, this is jumping backwards a bit, but you've heard of Pac-Land, I presume. Right, it's a side-scrolling platform game starring Pac-Man and his world.
And is it the one where he's got like a wife and a kid? And
yes,
it's a little bit of a point
animated,
and click,
isn't it?
It's kind of like point and click, but it's not. It's a platformer.
No. It's a platformer. It's Mario basically.
Yeah. That came out on the SNES and stuff as well, didn't it?
Oh, I've no idea. Yeah, no idea.
It's the 16-bit kind of
an arcade thing.
Yeah.
If you'd like, I can sing you the theme tune because it's in my head now and it's not moving. And I could go on, but Pac-Land. There was the amazing thing about Pac-Land, right? It's a perfectly fine. In my head, it's a bigger deal than it actually is in terms of as a game, right? But it had this thing in it where you walk along the Pac-Man's little road that he lives on with all the different houses.
And it's all coming back to me now.
And the ghosts are all there being dicks about stuff and stopping you and killing you, right? So I don't know why he lives with the ghosts. That's never fully explained why they'd be in the area like this, but they're floating around. And if you jump into them, but you can get past them. They're just like, any of these kind of platform game kind of things. So you jump over them, but they're fire hydrants as well that he has to jump over, right? And so he runs along and and if you jump at the right point, the cherries appear and you can collect 5 of them in a row, and the points scale up as you're doing the thing, right? Because you're just going from left to right. But amazingly, and I only know this because I saw somebody do it, and this is whatever 86, 87, I suppose this was came out. That the second fire hydrant, the third fire hydrant, which looks no different to any other fire hydrants, if you turn around and go back and just push against it, it slightly moves about like 3 pixels across or 4 pixels across, and a hat magically appears out and lands on your head, and then you can headbutt these floating ghosts and get more points. But there's no indication of this. No warning. It doesn't look any different in any way. It is pure Easter egg. And you kind of going, that's great. But in like the mid 80s, how does the word get around about that? I mean, equally that bit and Steve showed us on Go 8-Bit, where you, on the whatever level of Mario, that you can actually jump on top of the game area and just run along the top.
Yeah, on the second level, yeah.
Yeah. How did the word get out about that?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because of, these days on Xbox and stuff, you get achievements, and you literally get achievements that say, like, I bet you looked on the internet for this, because that's what people do these days. Right. But that is a very good point. I was born in the 80s, so my earliest memories of playing Mario, you just knew that you jumped over the pipe on the second level. Like,
right.
There's no, like, I don't know. I just don't remember who told me that or anything. It's just one of those things like everybody always knows. So I guess when you're a little bit,
there were magazines, obviously, and they were probably seeding these things in magazines. So, like, I mean, that's how the Nintendo, whatever, up, down, left, right, whatever, that was, that the word got out about that. And they were built into the games. Yeah, it's interesting on the achievement thing. I remember meeting somebody who's, oh my God, what was that game that it was loads of things, there were 400 of these things you had to find dotted around the landscape. Christ, it's about 10 years ago. I know loads of them have done. I know Batman did, and loads of things have done, like, can you find the 400 amulets, whatever? But, it was one of the ones that really took it to extremes, like whatever. And I said, Jesus, why do you do that? And he said, look, we started it as a kind of an indication to ourselves of where you went. Like, we dot them around just so that so we would see how far you got in the game, and did people actually visit that area? And it was just and then people just got obsessive about it, and now we have to design them in. But it was originally just designed so that they'd go, oh look, nobody goes to that or nobody does that, so let's not build something like that again. In the incredible kind of, puppeteering of your brain that video games do. This is just part of the feedback loop they had. Like, and then people go, "Oh, where's the 399th, Riddler trophy? I got to find it."
You've got me thinking of like Batman Arkham City now with the Riddler.
Yeah, no, because I actually did the Arkham City. I think I got all but 3 of those because the last 3 were like perform 3 double loops and land in the same place. These kind of things. You have to go to a high tower and glide for 750 meters. Well, the ones that were just like, oh God, this is just a chore just to do this exactly.
It's just a chore. I think one of the greatest memories for me is GTA 5 when I was trying to 100% complete it, and I was cleaning the bottom of the ocean from nuclear waste with a submarine, and I was playing it, and I thought I could literally tidy my house right now.
Oh look, that was the thing. I had a routine when it was based purely on the thing in GTA. I got stuck in a bit in GTA where I had to drive to shoot somebody, and then if you ran away, you'd have to do the drive again. And you have to go to a toll booth and pay at a toll booth. And if you drove quickly through the toll booth, suddenly you've got 4 stars and everyone's chasing you. And you're like, oh Christ! You had to slowly line up at the toll booth, pay $3, go to the thing, try to shoot this man. And I'm commuting to work here. Why am I doing this from my own house? Like, I don't even have a job in which I have to commute, and I'm doing this in my spare time. Anyway, sorry, we're bouncing around. Balderdash, we were talking about.
Have you? I'm kind of thinking about this, and like, have you seen much speedrunning? Because that is a total kind of destruction of that idea. Just finding glitches, getting through there as fast as possible.
I did, because I remember seeing as well when somebody posted on the. Look at this incredibly difficult Mario level. There's the Mario level somebody stuck online that had like just vats of oil and just one thing. You had to just get exactly the right. People created these ones even before the Mario Maker, stuff like that. The speedrun thing is the key to that, just finding loopholes that you can get around.
Yes.
It's kind of finding loopholes, but then getting the best times. And now there's a full competition and like prizes and stuff, but they now get the developers on. So somebody's developed the game, they'll show them someone beating their level that they've spent months building, and some kid comes and beats it in 2 minutes.
What they should do is they should bring in all the people who design the assets, who design the environment, who like literally paint the leaves on the trees, and bring them in and have them sit with some kid who just wants to get through it as quickly as possible. And they're going, no, did you not see that the cinema posters from the 1930s that I put up there as part of gang? Don't care. Don't care.
That'd be a good TV show.
8 minutes 13. I can do the entire game in 4 minutes. I don't care with the fact that, but wait, you know, see that the sunlight actually arcs through, it goes through the building, and then it casts a kind of a glow onto the, don't care. Just trying to get to it as fast as possible.
That's me sometimes. Yeah. So, you touched on it earlier on about, obviously, you know, the video game industry is pretty much the biggest media industry in the world right now. Why do you think video games are not taken it seriously as an art form and so often disregarded?
It's bizarre because the easy answer is that it was a thing that was generally people did when they were 14, but didn't stop doing as they got older. And that makes sense if the industry was only 4 years old and it was just people who were in their teens doing it, or just boys doing it, or whatever way you want to narrow it down, cornerly. But the fact that we're an entire generation through this is a bit that bewilders me, like whatever. Because I'm 48 now. I get to play less because I've got kids. I have time to do all the long ones I enjoy, but I still consider myself a gamer. And also I've been doing it for 35 years. So we've gone through the bit where now we're rearing children, and I can't do the intellectual distance to go, oh, look at him on Fortnite. God, you'd never find me doing that, because you totally would have. So it's weird to me that it continues. I don't think it's it's particularly because if you say to people, no, you probably played Candy Crush on the train here, like whatever, or you probably got some little apps. I think have broken that down completely. Where people just download a little casual gaming, and you can go, there you go. Sorry, you're in the gang now. But the one I remember doing an interview once, because I do the BAFTAs, and every year there would be an interview I'd have to do, and every year I'd have to sort of fight that fight a bit. And go, well, actually, it's the largest entertainment in the world, or whatever, and it's a really, really big. And we're here in whatever hotel, where all of us wearing tuxedos. We'll see if it'll be years that where the single largest release, bigger than Harry Potter, bigger than whatever Star Wars, would be whatever Call of Duty would come out, and that would be the single biggest entertainment product of the year. So there's you'd go, look, this is clearly a thing, right? And I do it about 3 or 4 times. And then I did one for Sky News where the guy says, do you know what I hate? And I'm going, here I go. And he goes, when you're online, and he lists off some perfectly normal thing, and but then you get shot, and you go, where? And then the guy's hiding, and he's just sniping, and you're going, oh, okay, so we're just talking about this normally now. Okay, that's fine. Yes, I do know that feeling. That's so. I remember it switching a bit, like whatever. So I got less and less as years went by of that. But I remember it very definitely being a thing. The first time I did the BAFTAs, where I said, "This is ridiculous. That's your huge industry," and people going, "Thank you for saying that." You're going, did it really? It needed to be, and it was an interview. It was making all this stuff, but just always felt that I didn't get the. I mean, I don't want to see them turning brash. I don't want to see them losing the run of themselves and going around the place, going the weird and stamping on bookshops or something. See that's the future, right? Kicking CDs in the faces of people. But it was weird that it took so long for people to get over that.
Do you think TV's attitudes kind of changed towards gaming? Because when we talked to Charlie Brooker, he said TV kind of saw gaming as a bit of a rival.
Well, I remember years, this is again 10, 12 years ago, I chaired a panel in the Edinburgh Television Festival, and there was somebody there from, is it Double T? TT Games, did all the Lego stuff.
Traveller's Tales.
Traveller's Tales, yeah. And they were there, and it was a general panel about, interactive media and blah, 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 and all this stuff, like whatever. And one of them, it came to him, and he's talking about, how design and all that, blah, blah, blah. And then one of the producers raised a weary hand and went in a real, okay, I'll bite, in a kind of a, okay, well, I suppose we could make a game to go alongside, Coronation Street or whatever that they were making, or it's probably something far less iconic. But all right, how much upset? So how much would it cost to make one of these games? And your man from TT goes, well, for a big budget major release, it'd be $90 million. So I was just the whole room went, I was like, what? And he said, yeah, there's 100 people working for 2 years on this. There was such a pause that I stepped in and said, yeah, he's the daddy here, not you. You're actually, you have to go to him, not him to you for this. So I think they never quite got it. Because they thought it was disposable to a huge extent. But it's I think they have more of a sense of the hugeness of it now than they did. In terms of covering it and doing it, it does still lack, I suppose, from the communality of experience, that there being moments that everyone shares. In a way that you're just I've never seen The Revenant, but I know somebody gets attacked by a bear in The Revenant. Yeah. That's an example I used to quote. Because you can show a clip of a bit of it. It's more difficult to show a clip of a thing. You've got to come across a bar like that, the dog jumping through the window in Resident Evil or whatever. There are things, but they're it's, you have to achieve the brilliant thing. I mean, it's very difficult to bring somebody all the way to go, look, I suppose we actually weirdly, sorry, I'm gathering my thought here. Now it's easier because you'll say to people, oh, you've got to stick with this for 2 series and then it gets good. And people are used to that conversation as a thing, going, oh, no, I know the first series isn't great, but if you stick with it, blah, blah, blah. So you could probably go, no, play the entire way through Portal, and then there's this song at the end and it'll just break your heart. And people might be more open to that as a thing. But I think it lacked 2 things always. It lacked that communality, and it also lacked visible stars. And visible, attractive stars in evening wear, you know, being so you can print pictures of people. And so it's amazing how much of the media is there a picture of somebody looking good in an evening dress? You know,
do you think there's more kind of gamers within TV personalities and celebrities that just hide the fact that they're gamers?
Yeah, I don't, because it's not an objective shame. What I find weird is I'm still doing the BAFTAs. I did it again for the 10th time recently, and you're kind of going, surely now. Look, I mean, I know show business. There must be a younger version of me coming through, like who can do this for you. I mean, just I'm waiting for the shoe to drop, as it were, for them to go, listen. It turns out, name hot young comic of the moment is also a gamer, so we're going to go with them. But it is kind of weird that doesn't happen more than it does, because particularly for comedians, because Jesus, we all do it. But I suppose. I mean, but everyone is kind of a gamer now, so it's. I suppose it's difficult to differentiate it. Like it is a weird thing. I mean, and also because I remember having a conversation once about this on breakfast television, again, in the run to the BAFTAs, and they said, oh, but is it not a lot of time spent sitting in a room with a screen? And I said, oh, that's an interesting point. I mean, have you seen The West Wing? And they go, yeah. I said, well, that's 112 hours of sitting in a room with the curtains closed watching a screen. Why is that weird? Why is that different? Why is that better somehow then? You know, and so, yeah, it gets held to a very different standard sometimes.
Gaming's kind of, it's been innovative for a long time, but it's also got a lot of set standards. And we know you were on Room 101, so we were wondering, like, what kind of standard or gaming idea would you put in Room 101?
Fishing in bins for food. That got on my nerves a lot. I think it was the second BioShock that I stopped playing because I was tired of looking in bins for bits of pineapple. That slightly improved my health. And you're going, okay, finding food anyway is really irritating. There's a level of realism I don't need. I don't need to stop what I'm doing to deal with this thing. But like that was, we used to stand next to the bin and a counter was slightly open and goes, you found, and it was somebody who's pineapple. It irritated me because I like pineapple. So I don't feel I should forage for it. You know, I just go to Marks and Spencer's. They get the stuff shipped in. It's great. It's one of the joys of modern life. But there seemed to be a lot of that. And like forcing you to, the finding scraps of why these characters kept recording messages to themselves with bits of plot in them. I found quite funny.
Resident Evil.
And like again, BioShock loads of this, loads of like, you found a cassette tape. My experiments are going very well, but there's some strange results at the edge. I must investigate further. This is like slight foreshadowing of the plot that would appear, like in stuff. So when it's done well, don't get me wrong, when it's done well, there was a bit in Portal 2 where it's Joanne who plays J.J. Simmons. His name is J.J. Simmons, isn't it? The actor was playing the eccentric millionaire, and every area uncovered tracked the descent of the company and said, gentlemen, you are the finest astronauts and engineers, and what we're going to do here. And then it went to, we're going to give you $10 to get you out of the rain. We're just going to do a few experiments. And then if you survive, you can go back to the streets. So it was like, you could track the decay of the company because it's really brilliantly written, that thing. So when it works, it's great. But there's a lot of just, there's a strange cloud. I don't know what to do. I wonder, is Emily safe? There's a lot of that kind of stuff, which is, irritating. The gig I always wanted in gaming was to record the hints that, where an NPC would prod you in the direction, Sarge, over here, this door, near the barrel, shoot the barrel, just shoot the barrel. Which is the point where I'm literally standing unkillable, pointing at the barrel. Right, I'm shooting the barrel. Yeah.
Oh dear, you've just literally taken me back to like PlayStation 2 so much there.
We had one of the guests we had on with the guests kind of like presenters, award presenters, was the actor who played what's it called, Jock McTavish or something in one of the Call of Duties, and he came out and said, "It's very, very nice to be here, and well done. I know this industry, blah blah blah." And we kind of had to sort of semi-raise. I leaned and goes, "Just say the thing," and he went in and he leaned into the mic and said, "Come at me," and the whole room went, "Oh!" I've heard that so often.
Oh, man.
Like what he wouldn't do is he wouldn't crawl away, and I would crawl behind him with the. So it's but look, those kind of things which were there for a reason. I remember having a conversation. We had some developers on at the Cheltenham Science Festival, and they said, "Will we be doing a video game?" I said, "Yes, you can." And actually, weirdly, I didn't know enough really to ask them the right questions. And the only time it really took off is we got into barrels and why barrels. And they said, "Well, just barrels are easy to draw." And like, so the barrels have gotten better. And when we had enough, when we could do it better, then they became chests or whatever. I think it was chests, then barrels, and when we could do curves, and then it became other stuff like whatever. And it was just because that was what we could make, and so it had to be that for a while. And so it's why it's great that these things which become tropes or cliches are because look, that's what we could fit in. The memory could take 3 different types of barrels, so we were able to do barrels.
Fantastic. I love it. So you were in Game Master magazine as the Game Master. What did you think of the show? According
I
to
think
Ravi?
they did a little recreation where they put your head as a
in that kind of in the Patrick Moore thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, God, I bet that was flattering. Because it was I never saw much of Games Master. I think it was during the period where I wasn't involved in that universe.
Okay,
so Games Master wasn't a big thing for me. And was it because it was him saying, him giving tips, him going, people would write in and say, "I'm stuck at the, I can't find the amulet," and he would go, "First you must get the."
He'd say, "Shoot the barrel."
Yes.
But yeah, he would tell you where to go. Yeah,
He
would do the gig. Presumably, he knew nothing of what this was about.
Yeah, we did an interview with Dominic, and Dominic said that Patrick never actually. He just came in and did it in a box, and then kind of knew nothing about games, and would just read off this script and then disappear.
Look, there are DJs who I name a couple here, I can name a couple in Ireland, who have been hosting the Pop Chart Show for 40 years now, and deliver with the same enthusiasm. It's Shawn Mendes that they said, it's the Beatles, because that's the gig. They've got a good voice for it, But so I always thought that. I never quite saw the appeal of bringing that back. I mean, the Go 8-bit thing was appealing to a different thing. Because we pegged it on retro stuff anyway, and we had to do the bit of history of things. But also it was more about the interaction while playing. And so the actual, again, if you tie it to specific moments and try to make it topical, it's difficult to do. Also, I think it's so well serviced by the internet now. I think it's one of those things that it won't go on television because, and I remember having this conversation with somebody who does these kind of podcast, a video blogger type thing, where they go, "Well, I've got such and such number of thousands of followers," and you're kind of going, "Yeah, how does that translate across? No one knows what the showbiz currency exchange is between what you do and what we do on television, how that, moves across from one to the other. Like, it's so different from a thing. But I think people would just naturally wouldn't go to a TV show for it.
Was it a hard sell to get Go 8-bit going? Because I know Dave were looking at Red Dwarf and stuff like that at the time.
No, do you know what? I'm trying to remember how tough a process it was, because there'd been a couple of shows in Edinburgh doing games, and I think there was the fact that I said, did it around something different, and we said it was a vehicle to bring comedians together and have them just do a dreadful word, banter. It was probably the way it was sold. If it was just sold on We'll Do a History of Games, probably not. But there was always a glow about going back over the actual about those early things, and like that was one of the fun things about it. But like Go 8-Bit is at some point there'll be a short and not very well widely read history of Go 8-Bit, which I will go right. Here's where it went wrong, because it had a beautiful thing in the first series where it was two comics, the other two comics around them, me and Ellie being funny, but you had that tension of. Oh my God, Rachel Riley is about to beat Russell Howard at football or whatever it was, and this is going to be really funny. And then we could spool back and go, no, this is the bit where you're driving the wrong way around the track and they crashed into you coming the other way, and what the hell were you thinking there? And it was one of 300 people, and it was it hit exactly that mark of we're on couches just being silly and having fun. But with that whole, we're performers, we're doing it in a tight way, kind of thing that comedians do. And then it moved studios from the studios. In the studios, it got shut down. And so the series 1 was done with 300 people in it. And series 2, we had 40 people in some nights, or 60 people. It was up in Boreham Wood. People wouldn't travel out to it. The audience, they couldn't get a crowd into it. And it just drained the energy out of it. And it became this heartbreaking thing going, oh, this is so promising. This could have been Taskmaster. This could have run and run and run. And then it got dumped into a studio, and then the booking started being like, the best when there were Coronation Stars and reality people rather than comics. So it sort of became less funly performative and about the messing around and the tension. And it was just really irritating. I mean, there's a point where we had Susan Calman versus David James. And she beat him, and he's there afterwards going, this is happening again. We're going to do this again. And you're going, this is genuinely competitive. This is a genuinely fun. These are going to be memorable episodes. And then it just trailed away. It was really irritating. You'd watch it happening because the actual core event was suddenly in front of 40 people, and you're geeing up 40 people. There was one we did where there was, I think it was 50 or 60 people in one Tuesday evening, and we did the show, and it was grand. But it was always very stop-start because of the technical difficulties of jumping from console to console, from generation to generation. Sometimes there'd be huge gaps, so they tried to set up the VR or whatever. So we got to the end of a longish record, and I said, okay, that was great. Thank you so much for saying this. We're just going to do a couple of little things, little pickups that we do at the end, for the edit. So bear with us during that. And as I was saying that, an old woman who'd sat through the entire thing just got up and picked up her coat and, shaking her own head, walked out. And it was just, and I had the fit as a gig as watching this woman just walk up the stairs. It was at the back of the stairs of the audience, and just not hang around for that. I've had enough of this. That's leaving. And you're going, great. This is what we're doing now. And there's loads of things. So the only thing that kind of kept it going was the design team remained brilliant, and they would make full like 8 foot tall copies of the Atari joystick, or of the Nintendo controllers that people would have to jump up and down on and make happen by jumping onto the buttons, and they were astonishing. I don't know where they are. They're somewhere in a kind of warehouse somewhere. There is an 8 foot tall Atari joystick, and I should get it like the Incan head in the Simpsons basement. I should have it somewhere in my home, unexplained, just sitting there quietly. But that's not there, like whatever. And because the screen would come up, and we'd all go, "Oh my god, that's so amazing! What a beautiful thing you've done!" And then one stage we designed a flip lid. 2-screen. It was the early Nintendo. What are they called again?
The DS.
Watch and Go.
Oh, the Game and Watch.
Game and Watch. That was excuse Game and Watch, and it was Dara's hot potatoes, which led to a lot of me pointing out the racism inherent in that, and doing a silly voice to mock. Anyway, but they had Dara's hot potatoes, and by the way, I will totally be talking about this on another podcast because it was a thing, but. You can have it as well. But the point that made it genius, the point of it absolute genius was when it started, just for a second, all of the numbers lit up. All of the different animated things lit up. And it went 88888 across the thing. And you could see all the different places that things could happen and be exactly like the real machine would. And that I remember quietly going, that's that's genius. No, very few people will spot that. Will spot the care that went into going, do you know what I used to do? When you turned it on, the power would surge through it and everything would light up just for a second and then it would go into its mode. We're just going to stick that in and start just for a second. We'll have all other things light up. And you're going,
it's like a proper fan
they were
service.
genius working on it. But I think those little moments got washed away by the fact that there were only 40 people in the audience.
It's such a shame as well. So let's talk a little bit about, obviously, your other career as a comedian. So you're one of the few comedians who use video games as a subject, and you do it very well. Were you nervous about how people would take it and react to it?
Yeah, I mean, you don't, obviously, with any of these routines, you don't try them out immediately in a big room anyway. So you get to test them out and see how they go. So but no more than a lot of other things. But I didn't think it would be the hit of that show, and so it ended up going later and later, and then being the finale of that particular show. And that particular show was like a particular favorite show of mine. For the other routines were pretty strong. It was a nice one, that show, but. Then it just that bit of physicality at the end, of what is still I call the video game routine, because I think it was a nice observation. It's a nice strong observation that I keep seeing repeated back to me. That you have to earn the right to see the rest of the content and how unfair that is in comparison to other media. But just honestly, me waddling around the stage, being duck, crouch, jump, crouch, jump, crouch, toggle items, crouch, jump, crouch, and shouting snake. So it was, it was a thing that if you got it big, but even if you didn't, I'm suddenly waddling around the stage. But it did feel like it was a sort of a breakthrough that I could build up this, and this could be, I could rely on this to work generally in front of 1,000 people, 3,000 people, whatever, that it would be a strong enough bit to be the end of the show, because it was the last routine of the show. So it had to be, it had to cross over enough. Weirdly, earlier on in that show, there's a bit about the film 2012. By contrast, I was doing the very first gig of the tour in Stoke, and I said, so what's in the film 2012? And I explained it. And that was more difficult because you had to give them enough information about it for them to get the ridiculousness of the thing I was going to talk about. And the first night in Stoke, I was doing the routine, and for the most part it was going well, but a man in the front row raised his hand. I said, what is it? He said, I've not seen that film. And I'm going, okay, well, you just sit through this for a while and then we'll hopefully get to something in a little while. So it was like, it was a straightforward, I've not seen this, so therefore I'm zoning out in this routine. And I mean, you're kind of going, well, you've not lived with me, but you still went with the routines about me. It's kind of weird, like the thing to be really, no, this doesn't speak to me, this routine. That was more difficult when a specific thing, because a lot of stand-up comedy is about how much information you give them. You want to give them enough, but also the minimum. So you're not, any extra information is cluttering and it's confusing, and they're wondering why it doesn't lead to something. And so it's that's part of the game of writing it. So, but the video game thing, it genuinely, it could close the show because enough people got jump, crouch, touch to carry along everyone else.
Yeah.
And
the one
needed to know that Snake, when Snake dies, it goes, Snake.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah. I did a one of the BAFTAs. Your man was there. Hideo?
David.
No.
Hideo Kojima.
Hideo Kojima was there.
Yeah.
And there were two wonderful things about that. First was that, actually the second was that he delivered his speech in Japanese, and it was translated, but the translator wasn't beside him. The translator was just working off a microphone at the sound desk. So he would say he was doing, and then he would stand, and then a voice would say what he had said in English, which is slightly weird. And I said, thank you to Hideo for delivering speech both in Japanese and telepathically. But before that, he had been in the front row, and I said, Hideo Kojima is here. And everyone applauded, and I said, hey, I want to ask you one question. And from behind the podium, I took a box, and then I climbed into the box, and I was on the box going, am I hiding now, Hideo? Am I hiding? Am I hiding? it was partly a reference to the day-to-days. Is this cool? Is this cool? Me on the floor going, can you not see me now, Hideo? Can you not see me? Can you not see me?
I bet he was just sat there, just stunned.
Because he doesn't speak English, it turned out later. So I'm sure he got it, because I'm pointing at him, smiling, and then I climb into a box, I say something, and then I get out of the box and go do a big at him. Like, so he got it, but it was like, still, okay, have I flown for 12 hours to have a large man just go, is it a day with a box over my head? Have I disappeared now, Hideo?
I'm going to have to look that up because I've not seen that. That's brilliant.
It's quite sweet as a thing. Like, I think interesting if you watch it and I if I bail after 2 goes, if I go, am I hiding now? And then I get out of the box really quickly, means it didn't get the laugh I thought it would. I didn't really, people got it, but just in case, you may see that I went, let's get out of the cardboard box Joe quick.
Well, Robot Wars was a epic show, and it was really interesting because, like, Craig Charles at the time was trying to do loads of shows. I don't know if you remember one called Cyberzone, where they had really early VR and they all had to run around, and Craig was just running around trying to get stuff going. But Robot Wars was really a big hit back then. Were you kind of worried about bringing it back and thinking?
No, because I had there's parts of it where I'm not the ringmaster type. That's not my thing, really. And Craig was better, I think, for doing that whole hype man, sitting on top of the booth, on top of the box, spinning around kind of thing. You know, you can see behind my eyes that I'm more the ironic person in that situation. So that kind of just energy thing, I was slightly worried about. But the actual thing, I thought, oh yeah, that's not happened for a while. You know, that could be good. And I knew it was going to be on a big scale. Now, unfortunately, they scheduled it up against the Fish program for the 3rd series, because the first series was good. Second series, they tried to do it in 1 day shorter, and the robots kept breaking because they didn't have time to repair the robots, and everyone's exhausted. And we also know you've got to give it space to breathe. And so they reformatted it, and they reformatted it brilliantly, because they had the thing in the 3rd series where whatever the way the groups worked or the rounds worked, 10 robots were left over, and they put them into one fight. And so they had one fight that had 10 robots, and it was a winner takes all fight. And actually, it was a weekend that my kids came up to see it, and friends of mine brought their kids in, and it took about 3 hours to set up. So they're all sitting around in this warehouse in Glasgow for ages. We feed them sweets and all that. And then there was a 6-minute long Robot Wars fight, which is the longest fight ever, in which 9 robots end up in a tip, and then, you know, Awesomenator or something like that, or Destructonator wins. But it was a really genuinely quite cool thing to be in the room for, like, whatever, because they're just smashing, and we're like, what? That's gone. No, that's gone. Oh no. And then things are going all over the place. And, you know, that's great. And then they played it on the telly at the same time as Blue Planet 2. And everyone was going, look at the fish. Look at the amazing fish. Like, and even we were going, look at the fish. Going, we're actually on the telly and on the other channel, like, but no, the fish. And so it didn't get the numbers, and it got yanked. It was an awful shame. But it didn't look. I don't think it was as wow to the system as it might have been back in the 90s, because they did look very similar. There's a limit to what you can do, and I think they'd also the plans of maybe we'll have drones now, and you're going, well, they're just going to flap around, and if a drone hits anything, it stops. So you can't really have a drone fight. So the drones were too delicate, and then the other things were just, you know. But there were. It's a pity. There was one point where something sheared off at such a speed it broke through the perspex, the initial layer of bulletproof glass.
Wow!
And didn't go through the second double layer behind which the audience were sitting, but still went through a layer. So powerful things were happening, and it was great fun to be around. But it's a weird record because you had to wait an hour between each fight, because just to get all the bits of some robots out, shut the whole thing down, make it safe, put restraining bolts on the giant so people didn't get murdered by these things, and then wheel them out, wheel the next lot in, do all the build up, and then start again, like whatever. So as an audience event, you could see there were days where a lot of people in a freezing cold warehouse at the start of the episode, far fewer at the end of the episode. A lot of the kids had gone, oh God, can I go home now? Because I've got the air. So It was a very cold event to do. It was, yes, I was sorry. Again, one of these things that, my TV's gone very kind of, if this isn't working by now, quick, get to the next idea. So I think it could have run around for a bit longer, but it didn't, sadly. Pity.
Yeah, I really like the way that like the 90s one was kind of all attitude and these guys in jackets and stuff. And then the latest one was kind of inventiveness, families. You still had Apollo, the guys in jackets and stuff, but there was more of a range and diversity of the kind of Robot Wars creators.
Well, I think interesting. I think the Phoenix Knights killed off the whole Robot Wars. Like whatever the DJ was, guy going, stamping over people's tiny robots. But so we had to do it, and also that is, for good or bad, that's kind of my shtick, which is how cool engineering is amazing. That's great. That's fun. Let's talk about the sciencey part of it all. So that's kind of my thing, and so I was very excited to talk about what are we going to do with robots next, and how do you do this, and show me the tiny versions of it and all that, like whatever. So enthusiasm, nerdery, rather than the just blank it's a hype man kind of, this is going to be the fight of the century type thing, whereas I'm more interesting, a flipper against a spinner, let's see how that should work. Kind of sort of way that we're going to be doing it. But the Apollo were great because it was, again, they did a bit of that, but it's totally ironic, and the fact that they knew they kept flipping the house robots. Well, they did 3 of the 4 over the course of it, and they kept trying to come around and do thingamajig, the big one, whatever the hell he's called.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, a lot of the legendary stuff around it, I never really got into it in a big way. Somebody did an interview where they said, well, were you a big, they always do this when you take over a show, were you a huge fan of the original? And you have to go, oh yes, I hardly missed an episode of it. And I'd seen some of it. And I got the gist. It's great, but again, I think it happened when I was in university. But I said, but I thought the show was great, but I never got into the whole lore of it, meaning LORE, presuming that all nerds would know what I meant by lore. And that got printed. I never got into the law of it, LAW, and it's just weird. Like, I never got into the rules of it. So I never knew which one, Dietor and these kind of things, the old ones that went on fire randomly occasionally. But I thought, like, even the 3 series we did, there was the Apollo was brilliant. Apollo was a great champion, flipping things all over the place, and flipping just works great. Then Carbide was the one that was a spinner and was brutal, impossible to beat. It was just this ludicrously powerful, 4,000 revs per minute thing, and so it suddenly seemed like that was the arms race. And then the winner of the third one, it was a son and a dad and son, and it was, oh god, I can't remember. Was it one?
Gabriel was that one?
No, Gabriel was a weird thing. Gabriel was a thing that used to spin, and it had things coming off the side of it. This family, whole family, great family, who used to make all these little robots, and a robot kettle driving around in the repair area. There's some really cool people, but there was what was the one? Lovely kid and his dad, and they had this. Oh, I forgot what it was called, but they had to come through the 10 robot fight. They won that, then they won the semi-final, and then they come up against Carbide, and knocked them out. And it was this. They reinforced in exactly the right places to just edge it, and then they flipped them a couple of times just to underline it, like, and it was like this. And it was a lovely. The narrative of it was great, but unfortunately, fish win.
Blue planet just overcomes.
It's tough to beat, a really adorable clownfish.
How did the students that just created a box with wheels on it with gaffer tape kind of get involved?
Second, got destroyed almost instantly. And there was a kid who went in as Donald Trump, had Make Robot Wars Great Again, like a medical student who had one of those. There was a guys who had one that they just make on a farm somewhere, and it was just totally flat and made of a perspex sheet and would spin around. It was very difficult to defeat it. There were ones that were ludicrous and just tough to beat. There was a surprising amount of variety, given that it felt like, well, look, lads, we know that the way to win this is to build a spinner. But actually it felt like that kind of thing that like a video game thing, like what'll happen? An evolution will occur, and people will find out how to beat that, how to defeat that, and then we got to find some other way to do it. And it felt like it was, even in the 3 series, it evolved nicely. I mean, 3 different champions is great. There was every chance. I think Carbide was in the final 3 times, lost twice, won once, which is good. Gives a bit of continuity, but isn't dull. So look, the fights were good, but just the public's hunger for robots fighting wasn't as huge as I think they thought it would be.
That's awesome. So this has been absolutely incredible. So what we tend to do is always wrap up the interview with just kind of asking what's next for yourself. So do you have any future plans for any sort of video game related content?
At the moment, no. Although tomorrow, weirdly, I've got to write a new show, and it's not a topic I've gone back to for a while. So I'll see if there's anything there. The last thing I did, publicly with video games, was hosting the BAFTAs, and it was the first lockdown awards. It was like a week after lockdown, and it was done in my own house, where they sent me the thing that floats in the background, the kind of like logo thing, and I stuck it on the screen behind me and stood there and did the whole thing. And so that was my last public thing with it. But no, there isn't a specific video game plan to do anything at the moment, and we keep meaning to try to get something back in that sphere. I worry that if something happens and doesn't go, doesn't do years and years of it, like television has tends to go, well, we've done that. You're going to go, there's probably other ways of doing this. But actually, a good video game routine, actually, I might have a look at that. Because I'm not sure what I've other things to say about it. It might be nice to get back into enthusiastically ranting about video games again. But no, not specifically. I mean, look, I'm a comedian. We do nothing these days. So just gone. I got some podcasts coming up.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Dara. This has been absolutely amazing, and it's been an absolute laugh as well.
Good stuff. Very, very good. An absolute pleasure. Good luck with it. I never really got to talk about the games as much as I thought I would. I genuinely thought I'd be talking about Gradius for an hour.
Well, we might have you on another time if you're up for it to talk about Gradius for an hour.
A pleasure. Good luck.